Thanks for being here. I'm Daryl. So I appreciate you taking your time. We're going to have a little different time than we did earlier. So for the last presentation, which had a significantly larger group, I came in 5 minutes late because I was in a meeting that I could not get out of. So glad you're here. Thanks for being here. I'd like for this to be interactive. So we're going to go through some topics. We're going to talk about some cool stuff that you are doing, and then I would like for you to ask some questions. So what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit of our successes, transitions, and then how we move forward. So this represents what you do. This isn't what Daryl does. So I want you to recognize and see yourself in these successes. And then, as I said, I would really appreciate you asking questions. So what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to make sure I do this right, but we're going to talk about our system growth. And what we mean by that is that the health sciences is evolving. It's evolving pretty quickly, and we are no longer just WSU Health Sciences Spokane. Many of you know that you've had responsibilities across the state for some time already, but the institution is recognizing that in fact all of you serve the state and the region. So I'll talk about that as we go, but we are a system within a system. So the health sciences is one of the call-out systems that has got a geography and it's got programs across the state, much like what WSU Pullman does. So I'll get into that in a little bit more depth, but one of the areas that is really remarkable is how the research has grown in the health sciences in the last decade. If you just go back 8 years, what you see is the research expenditures at that time are about $10 million a year. That's very impressive. But if you fast forward to right now, the research expenditures are up around $30 million per year in the health sciences. And when I refer to the health sciences, I'm talking about medicine, nursing, and pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. So when you consider that rapid a growth, you have to think about the effect that that's had on a lot of the staff colleagues, the drive of the faculty. This is really driven by teams and individuals who move the research forward. So this is a very self-motivated activity. Here are some of the areas of study from autism to sleep productivity and health. But you see, this is quite an impressive list of activities that are in the health sciences. There's a few that you might think about in how they relate to the mission of the WSU Health Sciences. And community health research fits very well with a community-based medical school and nursing and pharmacy programs that have already been going down that pathway earlier. So this is quite impressive, but what I would like to point out is a few kind of relative comparative dollar amounts. At WSU as a whole, the research expenditures this year, or in that fiscal year, were about $370 million. About $155 million of that was federal research grants. If you look at the number of your team, almost all of this $35 million actually is federal research grants or other awards. And for the first time in its history, WSU's #1 federal funding agency is actually HHS or NIH. It was USDA in the past, but it represents a transition to competitive funding that is more health-related than ag-related. So this is really impressive, and many of you in the room are responsible for this. So what I wanted to point out is that our academic programs are growing. So as you know, about 1,000 nursing students across the state. We have over 500, and people are laughing at the NEP rocks. Yes, thank you for looking at the slides. But about over 500 pharmacy students across the state. And then of course, how many medical students do we currently have in our system? There we go, 200, thank you very much. So we have about 200 medical students already in our system. And by the time we're done, we will end up with 280 students at one time in the medical program that is distributed across the state. So I'm going to continue to ask questions, so let's pay attention as we go. So another area that has been rapidly growing, and Dr. Naomi Bender is not here, but she and other colleagues in the colleges have contributed significantly to really an improvement in our connectivity with the tribes across this region. I believe there are 39 recognized tribes in the state of Washington. And when you think about our responsibility to engage well with them, we're doing better and better as we go. So I'd like to talk with you a little bit about some of the other initiatives that we have launched. Many of you are familiar with what we called the Gleason Initiative, and now it's the Gleason Institute for Neurosciences and Neurodegenerative Research. So I see two of the prominent individuals for the Gleason Institute are here. So Dr. Marcos Frank, hold your hand up please if you would, Marcos, is serving as the interim director. Marcos is also the chair of biomedical sciences in the College of Medicine, so he has a full plate. In addition, Andrea Lazarus is serving as the executive director to push forward the Gleason Institute. In addition, we have three new fellows, Dr. Jason Gerstner, Travis Denton. Weren't you here, Travis? Where'd you go? Yep, there we go, Travis Denton. And oh yeah, yep. Hey, all right, I didn't see you. So we got Jason and Travis here, and Dr. Chater, Naomi Chater, she was at the earlier meeting. So congratulations to you for being the inaugural fellows of the Gleason Institute. We have phase 1 construction underway and approved, but if you look across toward the bridge and you see the building with the black facade there, that's going to be the Gleason Institute. We have a 3-year lease on that, and the initial activities of the Gleason Institute will occur there. So it's an exciting time, but there are other good things that are happening, and this is one of them. So this year, WSU received its largest ever operating increase of $14.4 million. It just so happens that was designated to the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine. So historically, we've never seen an operational increase from the state at this level. In addition, what we saw is initial funding for a 3-step process of trying to build a new biomedical sciences building, and that goes for the first biennium, a pre-design phase, then we go to a design phase, and then a build phase. For this particular building, it will be similar to the PBS building. It will have a heavy wet lab orientation. In addition, it will have modern teaching facilities. So the entire ask on this is going to be on the order of $85 million, but we've already been asked as a team to step up and generate somewhere on the order of 50% more philanthropically. And Nancy Fike has guaranteed us that will, I'm sorry, just seeing if you, just seeing if you're paying attention. Yeah. So Nancy's willing, right. Nancy's willing to get another 40 million. So we're in good shape. So I would also just point out that, and we have this information about a student-led preceptor bill passed. One of the things that's been a real joy for me being here is to see how motivated the students are. And whether it's professional students or graduate students, they band together, they seek out a solution for something that's affecting a lot of them and those who will come later. And part of this was that we had in place a system where only physician can oversee medical students, pharmacy professional oversee pharmacy students, etc. This allows for a more broadened preceptor activity where those in different disciplines can actually have different learners that they will oversee. So it was a student-led activity that led to the bill being passed. And Brandy's not here, but that team was really amazing the way that they did that. So we help develop leaders here. So some of the events, and some of you were involved in these. So Nahashni was a 12-day, approximately 20 student activity that occurred here on campus. Dr. Bender and others were involved in this, and this has gone on for years, but there have been a number of people who were involved, and it's really a very cool activity where Native students are educated about the opportunities for them in the health sciences. So the new leadership, and some may have participated in this, this was about 20 young women leaders that were college age from different institutions that came here, and they had leadership training and preparing those women leaders of the future. All of Us was a program where we partnered with the National Institutes of Health. They brought a mobile facility here on campus, and what they're trying to do is educate people about the value of participating in different research studies where they would take blood or they would take samples, and then they would collect those so that the NIH can do studies and do population analyses. So that was here. It was over by the bookstore. It was really interesting. I think over like 250 people went in. They saw the value of doing this, and I think a number of folks actually contributed their samples to All of Us. Then Dare to Dream is another program where it's younger folks learning about the opportunities in the health sciences. But this was, I think, sponsored by the College of Medicine. So what are some of the college highlights? I put the deans on the spot, so I'm going to pick people randomly. No, I will not pick anybody randomly. Ken, do you want to say? No. So I put the deans on the spot earlier with this and had them just cover some of the information, the cool stuff happening in the colleges. I wanted them to be able to say, this is really some of the exciting stuff going on. But as many of you know, the largest and most diverse class, we had 80 students, thank you. We have 200 now. But in this class, 54% female from 20 counties across the state. I believe it was 37%, Christina, that are kind of first gen, is that correct? Okay, so it's really quite remarkable in terms of the representation, its fulfillment of the vision and the mission for the college. So really, really cool. Provisional accreditation was achieved. They are moving forward well to get full accreditation. You may have heard about the recent startup funding. Congratulations to several of you in the room. But an example of the funding, but not the only, was to receive over $5 million from Premera. There had already been awards that had been granted to medicine in the $1.5 million range to begin GME programs. So I'm just going to ask, does everybody know what GME is? Residency programs. So you are ambassadors, talk to folks about the value of these residency programs. Most of you know that a newly minted MD actually cannot practice until they go through a residency. And typically it is 3 years minimum and then beyond. But this Premera Award is an example of a new way of funding residency programs. So it represents really the model that I think medicine will need to use in the future. In addition, there is a distribution of the students across the state, and this is really cool, the hub and spoke kind of model for our students being out across the state. The $17 million in research awards, it's actually a little bit higher in the way that Dr. Roll described this is the research awards also do represent contracts, but let me say it this way for a second. Think about medicine and what the research awards were 4 years ago. Thank you. So Taryn says 0. Now to go clear to $17 million, it's really quite amazing. Folks, I'm going to talk about pharmacy and even nursing. We've seen the same kind of growth. It is remarkable. And a lot of this is due to the hard work that you have done. So here's some examples. So the $1 million+ federal award to establish the Center for Rural Opioid Prevention, the Sleep and Performance Research Center. One of the things I can talk about him because he was here earlier, but Dr. Van Dongen, that's a several $1 million a year operation, and it is a world-class operation in the College of Medicine. And then new NIH-funded project to study health outcomes of outdoor preschools. So I won't pick on him too much, but Dr. Frank is an example of successes in this area where he holds multiple NIH grants, but is still building with other people to larger and larger research projects. So please think about your role in pushing things forward like that. Nursing, celebrating its 50th year. It welcomed its largest BSN class. I wanted to mention this DNP growth. This is really quite remarkable. So the Doctor of Nurse Practice program in our College of Nursing, again, back to Taryn's statement, in 2011, we had 0 students. We now have in this program more than 170 students statewide. It's remarkable what this team can do, and honestly, this was pretty underfunded to get to here. So this is going to contribute to a lot of the primary care needs that we have for underserved populations. Nursing has an interim dean, Dr. Mel Haberman, and he and the team are doing a great job. I would say that since the departure of the former dean, there has been a lot of continued inertia and good movement forward in terms of programs and research. The dean search, we hope, will conclude with an appointment of a dean by late spring or early summer. So that is what we are hoping for in nursing. The research, and again, I did pick on Dr. Nelson, who was here for the earlier talk, but Dr. Lonnie Nelson, who just relocated from Seattle to Spokane, is part of the iReach program. And how many have heard of iReach? Okay, good. Again, for you to even know what it is excellent. But Dr. Nelson and his team actually were awarded this massive research award, and this is a really cool program. So fatigue risk program, and then partnership with the Spokane-based Ray Srudin Foundation. So there is a lot of activity going on. Many of you are aware also, and she's not here, but Celestina Barbosa-Leiker is an example of someone who succeeds and then is punished for it. So she's coming on board to be our Vice Chancellor of Research. In fact, she just did. And she is really a great addition to the team because she's now working for all of you. So it is pretty cool. She will maintain her research program in nursing, but she's working for all of the colleges at this point. Pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. Gary Pollack was here 9 years ago. He was asked to move all of pharmacy on site. It's a college that's more than 100 years old in the WSU system, but it was bifurcated to 2 places, Spokane and Pullman. He and his team moved it all to Spokane, and at the time of their movement or the process, the research awards were about $500,000 a year. If you think about how much they've grown and the effort they put into this, they are now more than 15 times the size in terms of their research activities. So some very, very cool work going on in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences, and they've recruited some outstanding people. We are fortunate in medicine and now in pharmacy to have some of those super producers from that other university across the hill that we brought here, because this is a much better place to work. So we'll continue the emphasis on doctoral students for future practice. Again, a huge PharmD program. I will point out, and some of you know this, Yakima has about 130 PharmD students. That's actually bigger than some of the pharmacy programs across the nation. So just the Yakima activity by itself is massive. So just something to keep in mind. The dean search is underway also. We have a search firm that is helping us. We have a dean who will serve as the chair of the search committee. We hope to appoint a dean by about the first of the summer. The research, and this is referring to an individual who was recruited from the UW, and then I am finding it very interesting how pharmacy does their drug discovery, their drug delivery, pharmacokinetics. It is really a great group, and they are contributing. They are actually ranked in the top 20 in terms of colleges of pharmacy, and before, well, 9 years ago, they were almost 60. So think about how much they've improved. How many are in pharmacy that are here? Okay, you need to brag back to your team. It really is amazing the progress that has been made. So here's another example of a NIH award that was recently made. So what I'd like to talk with you now about is just some of the transitions. So we have some new and upcoming hires. This is to highlight Dr. Barbosa-Leiker and her coming on board as Vice Chancellor. She did that October 1. So here we are. To be hired, a Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs to support the colleges and the deans, then the Dean of Pharmacy and the Dean of Nursing. So this will occur soon. In addition to that, some of you have already heard, but I'll talk about it briefly, that Andrea Lazarus has come on board as an Associate Vice President. And she and others like her represent partial appointments as Associate Vice Presidents or Vice Chancellors. And what it represents to me is people committed to building bigger things, and they're going to take a small amount of their time, and they will work with us at the campus level, but they will stay embedded in the colleges at the same time. There are going to be a couple of other announcements coming soon where others in colleges have said, we would like to also work with you at a level, a campus level and a health sciences level. So Spokane-based administration, this is just what we were talking about, that we have activities as WSU Health Sciences, and I'm going to talk to you in a minute about what we're referring to as WSU Health. But just to point out that there are educational programs, research programs, or both at all of these different sites. Yakima Tri-Cities, Vancouver, Everett, Puyallup, or Walla Walla. And if you think about, we're already statewide. Some have even suggested that with all the clinical affiliation agreements, that the health sciences will mimic what you see with extension programs. So 39 counties, WSU has extension presence in all 39 counties. We're already about to that point with our health sciences as well. And that's why we think of how do we consider this, how do we think of it in the future, and that's why I'll use the term WSU Health. So my role, it just represents that I'm responsible for our statewide activities, not just here in WSU. President Schultz said, your title is Vice President for Health Sciences and Chancellor, WSU Health Sciences Spokane. So here's the rest of the team, and this is not the entire team that's working at the campus, but some of the leadership. And Dr. Barbosa-Leiker and Bender are not here. Dan, would you raise your hand just so people know who you are? Dan DeNike is Vice Chancellor for Finance. Hold it up for a minute so everybody knows. Thank you very much. All right, you can put it down. Laura Hamilton, just so people know, Area HR Administrator. Margaret, most people should know who Margaret is. Yeah, thank you very much. And Andrea's not here. Brooke, yep, thank you very much. Jim Moore was here earlier. Tony Opheim is not here, but we have borrowed Tony from Pullman now for over a year. And Tony has really helped move us forward in the IT space. Then Kim Papich is here. Would you raise your hand, please? And then John Shadd, I don't think he's here. And if you don't know Eric, please, Eric, raise your hand as well. Naomi, are you here? Raise your hand. Sorry. I know, I was just trying. Well, I was hoping she'd raise her hand anyway. So pardon me, folks. So let's talk for a minute about the road ahead. So some of the opportunities, what we've referred to as WSU Health, and then kind of some underpinning and organizing thoughts. So WSU is going to play a vital role in the future of health. We're already seeing this across all 3 colleges. The cool part for me is that I'm not here to see educational practices. I see change agents in all 3 colleges, a community-based medical school. You have a pharmacy school that is absolutely committed to educating its learners about business and leadership. You have nursing that is expanding into nurse practitioner and nurse leaders. Medicine is an example of developing leadership programs where you have stackable certificates that can lead to a master's degree. And they're going to share that program across the health sciences and beyond. So there's a lot going on in terms of the way that they think about manifesting change in health. But I want to talk with you in just a minute about the more prominent role of education. I will get there. But one thing that we are shooting for is enhanced experiences for all of our students. And I'll talk with you about a potential facility that would do that. Next, I will just mention to you, and some of us live this dream, we're going to have to remodel how we do our budgeting processes for all 4 units, which is the campus and the 3 colleges. So we're in a process to do so, and it's going to take a couple of years. Because right now, we are a campus still co-located, I'll use air quotes, co-located with Pullman. That is different than the budget models for Vancouver and Tri-Cities. In some ways, that's a benefit, and in some ways, that's a drawback. And as we mature, we probably need to move more toward a budget model like Vancouver or Tri-Cities. So expansion of clinical research and academic programs, I've already talked a little bit about that, but one thing to keep in mind, we have a tripartite mission as a land-grant university: education, research, and outreach and engagement. Our outreach and engagement is going to be healthcare. And that will be very similar to systems like a Texas A&M system or a Penn State system, where the land grants there have medical schools and health sciences, and they deliver healthcare. So we've moved into this smaller grouping of land grant institutions with the health sciences and specifically with the College of Medicine. So WSU Health, I'd like to describe this concept for a little bit. When you turn and look inside our institution, what is WSU Health? It's our health sciences colleges interacting with all of the other colleges at the institution. So medicine alone has collaborations in research across every other college at the institution. We're also working on academic programs. I'll pick on medicine again, but if you think about, they're working with communications, they're working with business, they're working with arts and sciences in the academic realm also. Now, if you consider that internally, it means we are engaging with everybody and inviting all those other colleagues to participate in program builds with us or activities right now. I mean, there's researchers here who work across the disciplines, and WSU Health is about that, including the fact that even the name. We do WSU Health Sciences, but WSU Health embraces those who are not directly involved in the health sciences. Now, what about outside? So the internal look as we work with everybody, who do we work with as we turn and face out? We work with a lot of the provider systems, whether it's Providence, whether it's Multicare, whether it's Kaiser Permanente. So we are working with systems outside, in addition to that, business and many, many other collaborators, and I'm going to point that out in just a minute. But this is a different way of thinking about what we do as a community. Why is this important? I'll get in trouble for saying this, but I'll just say it. WSU Health Sciences will be one of the initiatives at WSU for the decade to come or decades to come. It's where the investment is. It's where some of the commitment is. Will we lose our identity? No, but it's an added part of our identity as an institution. And to achieve this, we're going to need to take action, we're going to partner, and we're going to look for new spaces. So when you think about taking action, teaching wellness instead of just doing healthcare delivery, team-based healthcare, enhancement of skills and problem solving, elevating the role of education in healthcare. The health systems like a Providence or a MultiCare are asking us to step up more and more into a space of education becoming part of healthcare. Think about if you have chronic challenges. Oftentimes it's better for you to receive education, not to go into a clinic or a hospital. And more we will see a merger of education and higher education with the health systems to achieve greater healthcare delivery, better healthcare delivery and wellness. So we are educating healthcare leaders. I've talked about that a little bit. And then we're about stimulating innovation and change. So Kim is really quick because this last slide, it represents an earlier version of this, spurring urban and rural healthcare, and I would say with a focus on communities and those underserved. And that represents what you do as well. So when you think about how we would partner for health, you would imagine, and we are, collaborating, and sorry about this one, but we have to deal with it. Many of you know that UW students are on our campus, so just swallow that bitter pill and we move forward. But we are working with higher ed partners. We are working with the federal government, the local, state government, the providers, and this is not a complete list, foundations, nonprofits. This team, and the way that we think about this is a vector pushing toward a collective vision of doing basic clinical and translational research, health profession education. We have economic impact and we do economic development, and then the delivery of health care. When I talked about the $35 million in research expenditures, NIH does a little calculation that for every dollar they contribute to a local entity, it actually spurs $2 of economic impact. So you can say that what you do collectively is already generating approximately $100 million a year in economic impact. So you're having a very positive impact. WSU Health, it's about geographies across the state, but here's what I would also say. It's about the Pacific Northwest. And what we are learning is that our partners in Idaho and in Montana across this region are asking for what you do. So we are trying to build new buildings because we're already out of space. Some of you know that we're actually leasing space off of this campus because our programs have grown so fast. And we need additional space. I mentioned the biomedical sciences building that is portrayed here. It will essentially be a sibling building to PBS. It will house all three of the colleges or parts of those colleges and the activities. It'll have a heavy emphasis on wet labs, and it will have educational space. In addition to this building, we are hoping that on a shorter timeline that we would be able to build what would be a virtual clinical campus. That's borrowed from Dean T, and it's scoped by the different deans, but what they're talking about is simulation space that our learners could be in, and it does a couple of things. It helps with skills development, but it really is beneficial in terms of team healthcare delivery and practice. So we're in a conversation with numerous potential partners about how we might have an additional building. I risk by saying this, but I might as well tell you that's some of the efforts that we are making right now, is to have a building in place sooner than this 6-year out biomedical sciences building. And if that doesn't spawn questions, I don't know what will. So embracing our role as a system within the WSU larger system, this is what you did. This is actually the collective vision of the state of Washington. So you're living into that. I'm trying to live into that. I've actually just been here 2 years. It may seem like an eternity for some of you, but just 2 years, and it's still fun to see how much things are growing. So we're establishing our identity, and we're really living into this well. Almost all indicators are positive. We have a lot of work to do on the budget. We'll get there, but it's really an exciting time, and we are progressing with the capital project, so absolutely. And thank you very much for being here.